The message came at 3 in the morning, and Admiral Park Dae-sun knew that everything was about to change. He sat alone in his office on the orbital station above Earth, reading the intelligence report for the 5th time. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of human extinction. The alien fleet had moved. After 6 months of watching from the darkness beyond Neptune, the collective was finally preparing to attack. Park was 62 years old. He had spent 40 years in the United States Space Navy, climbing from a young pilot to the highest rank any officer could achieve. He had seen wars on Earth, fought in the Mars Rebellion, and commanded ships in the asteroid belt. But nothing in his long career had prepared him for this moment. The collective had been watching Earth for half a year. Their ships numbered over 2,000, each one bigger than the largest human vessel ever built. They hung in the cold darkness of space like patient hunters, waiting for the right moment to strike. Every military expert on Earth agreed on one thing. When the attack came, humanity would fall within a week. Park stood up and walked to the window. Below him, Earth turned slowly, blue and green and beautiful. Billions of people lived down there, going about their daily lives, unaware of the death that waited in the outer solar system. Most of them had no idea how close they were to the end, but Park knew something that the experts did not understand. He had studied the collective for years, reading every piece of intelligence, every intercepted transmission, every analysis, and he had noticed something that others had missed. The collective was waiting. They expected humanity to do what every other species had done: beg for mercy, offer surrender, show fear. In 300 years of conquest, the collective had absorbed over 100 alien civilizations. Every single one had submitted before the fighting truly began. The mere sight of the collective fleet was enough to break their will. The aliens had forgotten what real war looked like. Park smiled, though there was no happiness in it. Humanity had a different history. Humans had been killing each other for thousands of years. War was written into their bones, carved into their souls. They had invented weapons that could destroy entire cities in a single flash. They had fought wars that killed millions. They had looked into the face of death again and again, and they had refused to stop fighting. The collective did not understand what they were dealing with. Park picked up his communicator and made a call to the Secretary of Defense in Washington. The conversation was short and direct. Authorization was given. The Prometheus Initiative, humanity's greatest secret, was finally going to be used. For 30 years, hidden from the public and from the world, the United States had been building a fleet. The Prometheus Initiative had started as a response to the first alien signals detected decades ago. Scientists and military leaders had known that contact was coming, and they had decided to prepare for the worst. The result was 847 warships, hidden in bases throughout the solar system. They were not beautiful ships. They were not designed to inspire awe or show power. They were designed for one purpose only: to kill. Park took a shuttle down to the secret base on the dark side of the moon. There, in an underground hangar that stretched for kilometers, his fleet waited. The flagship, USS Indomitable, stood at the center. It was a massive vessel, bristling with weapons, painted in dark colors that would make it nearly invisible against the blackness of space. Commander Huang Sujin met him at the airlock. She was his executive officer, a woman of 40 with sharp eyes and a calm voice. She had been with Park for 15 years, and he trusted her completely. "The fleet is ready, Admiral," she said. "All ships report green status. Crews are standing by." Park nodded. "What about the aliens?" "No change. They're still holding position beyond Neptune. Our stealth probes show they're running final checks on their weapons. Best estimate is they plan to attack within 72 hours. Then we attack in 12. Sujin did not show surprise. She had known this moment was coming. "The crews will be ready." Park walked through the corridors of the Indomitable, watching his sailors prepare for battle, They were young, most of them, men and women in their 20s and 30s, born and raised on Earth, trained in secret for a war they hoped would never come. Now that war was here, and they showed no fear. They showed determination. He stopped to speak with a young ensign who was checking weapons systems. The boy could not have been more than 23. "Are you afraid?" Park asked. The ensign looked at him with steady eyes. "No, sir. My grandfather fought in Korea. My father served in the Pacific. I was raised to fight for my country. Now I get to fight for my planet." Park felt pride swell in his chest. This was humanity. This was what the collective did not understand. At midnight, the fleet began to move. 847 ships powered up their engines and slipped out of their hidden bases. They moved in complete silence, running dark, their systems designed to avoid any detection. The collective's sensors were calibrated for the slow, frightened approaches of species that had already accepted defeat. Humanity was not approaching slowly. Humanity was not frightened. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Park stood before his command crew. The stars filled the view screen, cold and distant. Somewhere out there, the enemy waited. "All ships," Park said into the fleet-wide channel. "This is Admiral Park. For 30 years we have prepared for this moment. Tonight, we show the galaxy what humanity truly is. We do not submit. We do not surrender. We fight." He paused, looking at the faces of his crew. "Go dark. We strike at midnight." The fleet vanished into the blackness of space, racing toward destiny. Commander Kang Yuna had trained her entire adult life for a battle that everyone told her would never happen. She stood on the bridge of her destroyer, the Reaper's Edge, watching the tactical display as the human fleet moved through the darkness. Around her, 17 other destroyers flew in perfect formation. They were the tip of the spear, the first ships that would strike the enemy. Yuna was 38 years old. She had joined the Navy at 18, following in the footsteps of her mother, who had served on submarines in the Pacific. She had risen quickly through the ranks, showing a talent for tactics and a coldness under pressure that impressed her superiors. When the Prometheus Initiative needed commanders, her name was at the top of the list. Now, as Neptune's pale blue light grew larger on her view screen, she felt only calm certainty. Fear was a luxury she could not afford. Her crew depended on her. Humanity depended on her. "Distance to enemy fleet?" she asked. 40,000 kilometers in closing, her tactical officer reported. "They still haven't detected us." Yuna smiled slightly. The aliens had no idea what was coming. Their sensors were designed to spot ships that were broadcasting identification signals, ships that wanted to be seen. Human ships were designed to be invisible. Across the fleet, other commanders prepared their own ships. Captain Seo Minho stood on the bridge of the assault carrier Fury of Seoul, watching his pilots climb into their fighters. He was a big man with a loud voice, beloved by his crew for his fearless attitude. He had grown up in a military family, trained at the Naval Academy, and dreamed of this moment since he first learned about the alien threat. "Remember your training," he told his pilots over the intercom. "These aliens have never faced humans before. They don't know what we can do. Today, we teach them." The pilots cheered. They were young men and women, barely out of training, but they flew like veterans. Minho had made sure of that. On the flagship Indomitable, Admiral Park watched the countdown timer reach 0. "All ships," he said, his voice steady. "Commence attack." The darkness of space exploded into light. 800 human ships fired simultaneously. Missiles streaked across the void like angry stars. Energy weapons carved bright lines through the blackness. The alien fleet, caught completely by surprise, had no time to react. Lieutenant Baek Jisoo commanded the drone swarm from her station on the Indomitable. She was 26 years old, a genius with computers and artificial intelligence. She had designed the hunter drones herself, small autonomous weapons that could think and adapt faster than any human pilot. "Deploying hunter packages," she announced, her fingers dancing across her console. "Targeting enemy command vessels." 3,000 drones launched from carriers throughout the fleet. They moved like a swarm of angry insects, intelligent and deadly. The collective's defenses, designed to stop large ships, could not track targets so small and so fast. The first wave struck the alien flagship. The massive vessel, 10 kilometers long, decorated with symbols of conquest, vanished in a ball of fire. The explosion was so bright that Jisoo had to shield her eyes from her display. "Flagship destroyed," she reported, keeping her voice professional despite the excitement flooding through her. "Moving to secondary targets." The collective had never lost a flagship in 300 years of conquest. They lost 4 in the first 10 minutes. Commander Yuna pushed her destroyer group forward into the heart of the enemy formation. The collective ships were trying to organize, trying to form defensive lines, but they were too slow. Human ships were faster, more agile, and their crews were trained for exactly this kind of aggressive warfare. "Target their engines," Yuna ordered. "Cripple them first, then finish them." Her weapons officer, a young man named Lee Tai-yang, fired with perfect accuracy. Alien ships shuddered and died under his attacks. He had been trained on simulators since he was a teenager, preparing for a war he might never fight. Now his training was paying off. The battle raged across thousands of kilometers. Human ships darted through the alien formation like wolves among sheep. The collective vessels were larger, their weapons more powerful on paper, but they had never faced an enemy that actually wanted to fight. Every species they had conquered had been defeated psychologically before the shooting started. Humans were different. Humans had been fighting wars since before they could write. They had invented nuclear weapons and used them on each other. They had killed millions of their own kind in conflicts over land, resources, and ideas. War was in their blood. Captain Minho led his fighters directly into the enemy's defensive line. His pilots flew with reckless courage, dodging enemy fire, striking at vulnerable points. 3 of his fighters were destroyed in the first pass, but they took 50 alien vessels with them. "All units, weapons free," Minho announced over the radio. "Show them what we are." On the Indomitable, Admiral Park watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. The aliens were breaking. Their formation was falling apart as ship after ship exploded or went dark. They had expected fear. They had expected surrender. They had found something very different. Dr. Han Mira stood beside the Admiral, watching the tactical display. She was a civilian, a psychologist who had spent her career studying alien behavior. She had helped design humanity's strategy for this battle. "They're panicking," she observed. "Look at their movement patterns. They don't know what to do." Park nodded. "They've forgotten how to fight a real war. 300 years of easy victories made them soft." The collective fleet was dying. Ships exploded across the view screen like fireworks. Human vessels, smaller and faster, danced through the destruction, dealing death with cold efficiency. By the end of the first hour, 500 alien ships had been destroyed. Humanity had lost only 31. The message was clear. Earth would not go quietly into the night. Fleetmaster Akron had lived for over 200 years, and in all that time, he had never known fear. He stood on the command deck of the Eternal Dominion, watching his fleet die around him, and he felt something cold spreading through his body. It took him several moments to recognize the feeling. It was terror. The humans were not supposed to fight like this. No species fought like this. In 3 centuries of expansion, the collective had absorbed over 100 civilizations. The pattern was always the same. Arrive with overwhelming force, demand surrender, and watch the enemy collapse. Most species gave up before a single shot was fired. Those that resisted learned quickly that resistance was pointless. But the humans were not following the pattern. They had attacked, first. They had come out of nowhere, silent and deadly, and they had struck without warning. Their ships moved with a speed and aggression that Okran had never seen before. They did not fight to defend themselves. They fought to kill. "Why aren't they negotiating?" Okran demanded, his voice rising with panic. "Every species negotiates." His tactical officer, a younger member of the collective named Varen, had no answer. The displays around them showed the disaster unfolding. Red lights marked destroyed ships. There were so many red lights now that the display looked like it was bleeding. "They're targeting our command structure," Varen reported. "They know which ships carry our leaders. They're hunting us specifically." Okran felt the cold terror grow stronger. The humans had studied them. They understood how the collective operated, and they were using that knowledge to tear his fleet apart. On the Indomitable, Admiral Park watched the alien formation crumble with satisfaction that he did not allow to reach his face. The battle was going well, better than he had hoped, but it was not over yet. The aliens still had numerical superiority. They could still win if they organized an effective counterattack. Dr. Han Mira pointed at the tactical display. "Look at their flagship cluster. They're trying to regroup around the Eternal Dominion." Park nodded. "Target that ship. If we kill their fleet master, the rest will fall apart completely." The order went out across the fleet. Hundreds of human ships turned toward the alien flagship, converging like sharks smelling blood. The Eternal Dominion was massive, nearly 15 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that could vaporize a city. But it was also slow, designed for intimidation rather than combat. Commander Yuna led her destroyer group in the first attack run. Her ships screamed across the void, firing everything they had at the enemy flagship. Shields flared and flickered under the assault. She pulled away at the last second, watching missiles slam into the alien hull. "Damage report on the target?" she asked. "Shields at 60% and falling," her tactical officer reported. "Their repair systems can't keep up with the damage." "Hit them again." The second attack run was even more devastating. Captain Minho's fighters joined the assault, their small craft slipping through gaps in the alien defenses to strike at vulnerable points. Explosions rippled across the Eternal Dominion's hull. Atmosphere vented into space from dozens of breaches. Inside the alien flagship, Okran watched his ship dying around him. Alarms screamed. Crew members ran through the corridors trying to contain fires and seal breaches. The once mighty vessel shuddered with every human attack. "We must retreat," Varen said urgently. "If we activate our jump drives, we can escape before they destroy us." Okran hesitated. Retreat was unthinkable. The collective did not retreat. In 300 years, they had never run from a battle. The shame would follow him forever. But the alternative was death. And Okran, for all his pride, did not want to die. "Signal the fleet," he ordered, his voice breaking. "Full retreat. All ships jump to emergency coordinates." The order went out, and the collective fleet tried to run. Ships throughout the battle began powering up their faster-than-light drives, preparing to escape into the safety of hyperspace. But Admiral Park had anticipated this. "Now," he said quietly. Chief Petty Officer Cho Yunbi sat at the communications station on the Indomitable, monitoring every frequency. She was 32 years old, born in Busan to a family of fishermen. She had never expected to end up in space, fighting aliens. Life had a strange sense of humor. "The aliens are broadcasting retreat orders," she reported. "They're trying to run." Park smiled. "They won't get far." On the far side of the alien fleet, Commander Yuna's destroyer group activated the Shepherd system. It was humanity's greatest technological achievement, a network of devices that created gravitational distortions powerful enough to prevent faster-than-light travel. The system had never been tested in combat before. It worked perfectly. Across the alien fleet, jump drives failed. Ships that were seconds away from escape suddenly found themselves trapped, unable to break free from normal space. The collective vessels that had been running now found themselves with nowhere to go. Okran stared at his displays in disbelief. That's impossible. No species has this technology. No species can block hyperspace. But the evidence was right in front of him. His fleet was trapped, and the humans were closing in for the kill. The terror that Okran felt transformed into something else. Despair. He had led his fleet into a trap, and now there was no way out. The humans had outthought them, outfought them, and outsmarted them at every turn. "Send a message to the human flagship," he ordered, his voice hollow. "Tell them we wish to negotiate." Yunbi received the transmission and looked at Admiral Park. "Sir, they're asking to talk." Park shook his head. "Not yet. They need to understand their situation completely first. Continue the attack." The killing resumed. Human ships swept through the trapped alien fleet like reapers harvesting wheat. There was no mercy, no hesitation. The collective had come to enslave humanity. Now they were learning the price of that ambition. By 4 a.m, the collective had lost over 600 ships. The humans had lost 73. The message was clear. There would be no negotiation until the aliens understood that humanity was not prey. Humanity was the predator. The battle had entered its 4th hour, and the alien fleet was dying. Fleetmaster Okran stood in the ruins of his command deck, watching the destruction through cracked view screens. The Eternal Dominion was barely functional now. Half the ship was open to space. Power flickered in and out. The screams of dying crew members echoed through the corridors. He had sent 17 requests for negotiation. The humans had ignored all of them. "Fleet status," he whispered, though he already knew the answer. Varen, his tactical officer, was bleeding from a wound on his head. His voice was weak. "We have lost over 800 vessels, Fleetmaster. Another 300 are disabled. The humans are systematically destroying any ship that shows signs of recovery." Okran closed his eyes. 800 ships. In 300 years of conquest, the collective had never lost more than 50 vessels in a single engagement. Now they had lost 800 in a few hours. And it was not over yet. On the Indomitable, Admiral Park surveyed the battlefield with cold satisfaction. The tactical display showed the remains of the collective fleet scattered across thousands of kilometers. Most of the red dots that represented enemy ships were either blinking, indicating damage, or dark, indicating destruction. "Admiral," Commander Sujin said, "the enemy flagship is requesting communication again. They're offering unconditional surrender." Park turned to look at Dr. Han Mira. "What do you think?" Mira studied the display thoughtfully. "They're broken. Completely broken. I've never seen anything like it in my research. They genuinely don't understand how this happened. Their entire worldview has collapsed." Park nodded slowly. "Then it's time to send a message." He activated the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, cease fire, but maintain targeting locks. If any alien vessel attempts to power weapons, destroy it immediately." The guns fell silent across the battlefield. Human ships held their positions, weapons aimed at the crippled remains of the alien fleet. The silence was somehow more terrifying than the battle had been. Park opened a channel to the Eternal Dominion. "Fleet Master Okran, this is Admiral Park Dae-sun of the United States Space Navy. I am willing to discuss terms." Okran's face appeared on the view screen. He looked old, broken, nothing like the proud conqueror who had brought 2,000 ships to enslave humanity. His skin was pale, his eyes hollow with shock. "Admiral Park," Okran said, his voice trembling, "we offer unconditional surrender. We will withdraw from your system. We will never return. Please, just let us go." Park's expression did not change. "You came here to enslave my species. You have done this to over 100 civilizations. Why should I show you mercy?" Okran had no answer. He had never needed to answer such questions before. The collective took what they wanted. They did not explain themselves to lesser species. But humanity was not a lesser species. Humanity had proven that in blood and fire. "I will tell you what is going to happen," Park continued. "You will broadcast a message to your home world. You will tell them exactly what happened here. You will describe how humanity destroyed your fleet in a single night, and you will warn them. If any collective vessel ever enters human space again, we will not stop at destroying your fleet. We will come to your home world, and we will burn it to ash." Okran's face went pale. "You would commit genocide?" "No," Park said. "I would commit justice. You have enslaved over 100 species. You have killed billions. You have shown no mercy to anyone. Why should you expect mercy from us?" The words hung in the silence between them. Okran had no response. Everything he believed about the universe had been proven wrong tonight. The collective was supposed to be invincible. They were supposed to be the masters of the galaxy. Instead, they had been broken by a species that had only discovered space travel a few centuries ago. "There is one more thing," Park said. "We know about the species you have conquered. We know where their homeworlds are. We know how you control them. And we are going to free them." For the first time, something other than fear appeared in Okran's eyes. It was confusion. "Free them? Why would you do that?" "Because they deserve to be free. Because what you did to them was wrong. And because humanity does not stand by while others suffer." Captain Minho listened to the conversation from the bridge of the Fury of Soul. His fighters were holding position around the alien flagship, ready to destroy it at a moment's notice. But the Admiral's words stirred something in his chest. Pride. Purpose. This was why they had trained. This was why they had built their secret fleet. Not just to protect Earth, but to change the galaxy. Commander Yuna felt the same thing. She had spent her entire adult life preparing for war, and now she understood that the war was just beginning. But it would not be a war of conquest. It would be a war of liberation. "You will leave now," Park told Okran. "We are deactivating the Shepherd system. You have 1 hour to gather your surviving ships and flee. If any of your vessels remain in this system after that hour, they will be destroyed." "And the message?" Okran asked weakly. "You will send it. You will tell your people what happened here, and you will tell them that humanity is coming." The communication ended. Across the battlefield, the Shepherd system powered down. Jump drives throughout the alien fleet began to activate as the surviving ships prepared to flee. Chief Petty Officer Yunbi watched the alien transmissions with growing amazement. "Admiral, they're sending the message. They're broadcasting to their homeworld. I'm picking up fragments. They're describing the battle. They're warning their people about us." Park allowed himself a small smile. "Good. Let them fear us. Fear will keep them away while we prepare." "Prepare for what, sir?" Yunbi asked. "For the next phase. We're not going to wait for them to come back. We're going to go to them. We're going to find every species they've enslaved, and we're going to set them free." The last collective ships jumped into hyperspace, fleeing from the system as fast as their damaged drives could carry them. Behind them, they left a graveyard of twisted metal and broken dreams. Over 1,200 ships destroyed, the greatest defeat in collective history. And the dawn was just beginning to break. On Earth, people were waking up to news that seemed impossible. The alien threat was gone. Humanity had won. In cities around the world, celebrations erupted. People danced in the streets, hugged strangers, and wept with relief. But on the Indomitable, there was no celebration, only quiet determination. The battle was over. The war was just beginning. The sun rose over Earth on the morning after the battle, casting golden light across a world that had been saved. Admiral Park stood at the observation window of the Indomitable, watching the sunrise from orbit. He had not slept. He did not feel tired. The events of the night had changed everything, and his mind was too full of thoughts to rest. Behind him, the bridge crew worked quietly, processing damage reports and casualty lists. The human fleet had lost 89 ships in total, with another 200 damaged. Over 3,000 sailors had died in the battle. It was a heavy price, but nothing compared to what would have happened if they had lost. Commander Sujin approached him with a data pad. Her face showed exhaustion, but her eyes were sharp. "Final casualty reports, Admiral, and messages are coming in from every government on Earth. They want to speak with you." Park took the data pad but did not look at it immediately. "What are they saying?" "Gratitude, mostly. Some are demanding explanations about the Prometheus initiative. Others want to know what happens next." "What happens next?" Park repeated softly. He turned back to the window, watching Earth turn slowly below them. "What happens next is that we change the galaxy." The news had spread across Earth like wildfire. In every country, on every continent, people were learning what had happened during the night. The secret fleet. The battle beyond Neptune. The total destruction of the alien Armada. It seemed like a dream, too fantastic to be real. But the wreckage floating in the outer solar system was proof enough. Humanity had faced its greatest threat and had emerged victorious. Dr. Han Mira found the Admiral still staring at Earth an hour later. She had spent the morning analyzing the alien communications they had intercepted during the battle, building a psychological profile of the collective. "They're terrified," she told him. "The transmissions we intercepted from the surviving ships. They don't understand what happened. In their entire history, they've never encountered a species that fights like we do." "Good," Park said. "Fear will buy us time." "Time for what?" Park finally turned away from the window. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with purpose. "The collective has enslaved over 100 species, billions of beings living under their control, their cultures destroyed, their freedom taken. We're going to free them." Mira stared at him. "Admiral, that would take decades, maybe centuries. The collective controls hundreds of star systems. Then we have work to do." The fleet began its journey home, leaving the battlefield behind. As the ships entered orbit around Earth, they were greeted by a sight that none of them had expected. Thousands of civilian vessels had come out to meet them, their lights flashing in celebration. Radio channels filled with cheering voices, thanking them, praising them, welcoming them home. Commander Yuna stood on the bridge of the Reaper's Edge, watching the civilian ships swarm around her battered destroyer. Her crew was exhausted, some of them wounded, but they all wore smiles. They had done the impossible. They had won. "Commander," her communications officer said, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's your family." Yuna felt tears forming in her eyes. She had not allowed herself to think about her family during the battle, her parents in Seoul, her younger brother studying at university, her grandmother, who had survived war herself decades ago. She had pushed them out of her mind because she needed to focus on fighting. Now she could finally let herself feel. "Put it through to my quarters," she said quietly. "I'll take it there." Captain Minho gathered his surviving pilots in the hangar bay of the Fury of Seoul. They stood in ragged lines, their flight suits stained with sweat and blood. 27 of them had not returned. Their empty spaces in the formation were like wounds. "Today we remember those who gave their lives," Minho said, his voice rough with emotion. "They died so that humanity could live. They died so that Earth could remain free. We will never forget them, and we will honor their sacrifice by continuing their mission." He paused, looking at each of his pilots in turn. "The war isn't over. The collective will not forgive what happened here, and there are billions of beings out there who need our help. We're going to find them. We're going to free them, and we're going to make sure that nothing like the collective ever rises again." The pilots saluted. Their faces showed grief, but also determination. They had been forged in the fire of battle, and they had emerged as something new. They were not just warriors. They were liberators. On the Indomitable, Admiral Park addressed the entire fleet through a broadcast that was also transmitted to Earth. Billions of people watched and listened. "Today we won a great victory," he said. "But this victory is not the end. It is the beginning. For centuries, the collective has spread across the galaxy, conquering and enslaving every species they encountered. They believed that they were invincible. They believed that no one could stand against them." He paused, letting his words sink in. They were wrong. Humanity showed them that there are some things worth fighting for. Freedom, justice, the right to live without fear. These are not just human values. They are universal values. And we are going to spread them across the stars. Chief Petty Officer Yonbi listened to the Admiral's speech from her station. She thought about her family back in Busan, about the fishing boats that had been her childhood, about the long journey that had brought her here. She had never imagined that she would be part of something so big. But here she was, and she was proud. "We will not seek conquest," Park continued. "We will not enslave others as the collective did. We will offer friendship, alliance, and protection to any species that wants it. And to those who threaten the innocent, we offer only one thing: defeat." The speech ended, and across Earth, cheers erupted. In Tokyo and New York, in London and Mumbai, in Cape Town and Sydney, people celebrated not just their survival, but the promise of a new future. Lieutenant Commander Soo-jin stood beside Admiral Park as the celebrations continued. "What now, sir?" Park looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the collective was licking its wounds, trying to understand what had happened. Somewhere out there, enslaved species were dreaming of freedom without knowing that help was coming. "Now," Park said, "we build, we grow, we prepare, and then we go out there and change the galaxy." He turned away from the window and walked toward the bridge, his crew falling into step behind him. "Set course for the nearest collective-held system," he ordered. "It's time to introduce ourselves to our new neighbors." The fleet turned away from Earth, their ships pointing toward the distant stars. Behind them, humanity cheered. Before them, an entire galaxy waited, and by dawn, everything had changed. The collective had come to enslave humanity. Instead, they had awakened something they could never defeat. They had awakened a species that did not know how to surrender, that did not accept defeat, that fought not just for survival, but for something greater. They had awakened humanity, and the galaxy would never be the same.